I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to start the meeting off by,
I don't think it's on.
thanking the Highway Department and Russ Goff for the long duration, great job, because between the first storm and the second storm, well, the second one didn't turn out quite to be what they were promising. It still was a long duration storm and took a lot of work and effort, so just great job, Russ, you and the guys.
Thank you, Russ.
Okay, why don't we load some bills while we're just hanging out.
I'll make a motion that the town board approve abstract number 1B dated January 14th, 2015, in the amount of $572,481.43. So moved.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Adriano?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes. Please. Mr. Pete.
All right, first item on my agenda is the Nikon proposal for a security monitor. This is a installation of a security monitor for the rec center, for the recreation director to have a monitor in his office so he can view all the cameras while he's back in his office. I'd like to make a motion to approve $500 to purchase and install this monitor in the director's office. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Second item on my agenda, recreation request, the circulating pump at the rec center in the mechanical room boiler needed repair. I'd like to ask to approve $1,000, not to exceed $1,720. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Oh, we're doing good. Okay.
Sure.
So, oh yeah, you got Pete?
That's it for me.
Charlie, you want to go next?
Nice to me already.
Let's order.
I love supervisor.
Let's see. We received a request from the highway superintendent relative to hiring per diem workers in the events like happened this past few days. So I will make a motion that the town board approve on a per diem basis at $29.06 per hour, Ryan Blackwell and Michael Carney. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Pete, you did that circulation pump?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Next is a note from the Zoning Board of Appeals to the Town Board relative to the topic of restaurants and what was proposed by the town planner to amend the code. And basically, their memo says that the Zoning Board of Appeals looks favorably upon the suggestions that the town planner has made, and additionally, the Zoning Board of Appeals recommends that the town board considers addressing the hours of operation of this restaurant in any changes that be made to the code. My understanding is that the planning board is the next ones to review this, and they will also have a recommendation to the town board. So that's that update. Sean?
Well, I just want to add under the proposed changes for restaurants that anything that we do to improve on our code allows for many different triggers that would require review. Not only hours of operation, changes in the type of business. I know we've talked about this a lot, but want to make sure that we do this once correctly rather than just changing it and then having to go back 6 months from now when we find another example that proves that our code maybe falls short in some way. So I think it's important that we take our time with this and do it right. So, okay, we have a request from a resident who needed to renew a building permit, requesting a waiver of fees because of some extreme financial hardships that have arisen. We have a memo from our building inspector, Bob McCarthy, recommending to approve that waiver. So in the matter of, do this properly. Mr. Joe Francis? Sure, what's
Yeah,
up?
just one more thing to add in here. And
About
that, on this.
Okay.
That the deck doesn't meet, as I understand it, zoning requirements. He's been in, he's gotten the application for the zoning fees. So you may need to look at a waiver on that if you're gonna waive all the fees.
Do you happen to have the,
I
well, he
don't-
hasn't requested a waiver on those fees.
No, he hasn't, but you should know that there is a zoning,
Okay.
pending zoning application on this as well.
Well, I'll tell you what.
As I understand this, though, he's replacing a deck that's there, but he's moved the location of it, so this is sort of a self-created problem?
Yes, he replaced the deck, and the new deck does not conform to our zoning requirements.
Well, he moved it. The old one didn't either, but it was pre-existing non-conforming.
But he changed the location.
Yes,
Yeah.
if they'd have put it back exactly where it was, everything would have been fine.
Yes.
But they chose to move it, so they've created this problem.
And my understanding is, in addition to moving it, they enlarged it.
Of
I'm
course.
not sure it's bigger than it was. I think it's just in a different, is it? Okay, because my conversation with Mr. McCarthy made it seem that it was more or less the same thing, only it was just in a different location. And that it would now, because they've moved it to a different location, would now require a zoning.
Remember,
Yeah, and it just, I
Okay,
think
let's
it's,
do the waiver.
I think it's something we really need to consider, just, maybe working on a policy, because we seem to be getting more and more and more of these waivers.
Yep.
You got somebody put up a deck and created a problem of their own making. Somebody had a problem, was doing an addition or garage, and then their well
Same
went
one.
south on
That's,
them.
that's the one I'm talking about.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't
Well,
see a deck, that's why I was confused.
yeah, well, there was something on the back of the, I don't know, it was back of the
Okay.
house
We
or
had a
something.
diagram on email.
All right, in any case, this was for a recommendation from the building inspector to waive a $100 fee.
but now, we had this last meeting where we went through, you
Different
know, with a
situation,
woman
that was,
for
that was
$75.
a rental income,
Yeah,
income producing
that type
property.
of thing. And what about that business on 22, Mike, where you eloquently stated about, you start up a business, you should have the money to
A
start it up.
little more than what those little, minor fees are, but,
I mean,
I
right, where
think
does it end?
we better either take a look at our fee structure, or we better, seriously figure out what kind of a policy we want to adopt on this, because, it seems like more and more and more every day, we seem to get another.
Right.
And, we waived the fees for not-for-profits, we waived the fees for all these other organizations. And, you sit there and at some point, how do you put the brakes on this? And at what point have we not set precedent on waiving fees for people that haven't really demonstrated, we got their word on it? And I'm not saying that folks aren't honest or anything, but, it's a perceived hardship. $100 is, it's not a substantial amount of money as far as I'm concerned.
Rich, forgive
So-
me, but the deck project that you were just talking about with the zoning issue doesn't seem to be this application. This application is for a one-car garage.
Right.
It doesn't say anything about a deck.
All right, well, then my apologies, I thought this was the deck, because I know they also submitted a request.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Because
just.
Bob's memo says there's no violations on record, that recommends waiving for Mr. Joe Francis building permit renewal, has been up to date with all inspections and no violations on record.
Right.
This is for a,
Then it was my effort.
okay, it's for a one-car garage with family room above.
Yeah, well, there's two of them floating around. I don't know if we have the second
Well,
one,
we don't.
paperwork on the other one tonight or
don't.
not.
seen that.
But,
Okay.
they're starting to come in bunches now, so. I mean, it's
So what do you want to do with this one? I was gonna make a motion based on the recommendation to waive it, but
Well,
that's up to you.
I guess, whether you want to waive it or just postpone it until he comes back to start the project again. I mean, I understand that
okay.
$10,000 to replace you, well, that's a tremendous burden. And you know what, if you want to just postpone paying the fee until such time as they're ready to start the project again, you're going to build a one-car garage, that's a fairly substantial amount of money involved. So,
I'm fine with that.
Building department fee, to me, is, it's not, we're not talking about a huge deal.
That seems like a good alternative.
No, it's just,
Are we talking about the same?
well, if we're talking about the garage, yes. If we're talking about the porch, no. The
All right,
porch-
let's
So
just
what
be
is
clear.
what is
Charlie?
Bob recommending?
Bob-
On which one?
Bob, we don't have the paperwork on the porch for
Correct.
tonight.
Let's deal with what we have in front of us. This is for a waiver of fees for a building permit that is about to expire or has expired for a one-car garage, nothing about a deck.
Okay.
All right, it's in front of us for that. I agree with Mike's idea about postponing the fee. That seems like a reasonable compromise. Let's not confuse this anymore.
But now, is the town planner, you, somebody looking at the fee schedule? Wasn't this what was spoken about a couple of meetings ago?
Well, it was just basically 2 weeks ago. So,
Okay.
has it been looked at yet? No, it has not.
But that's the game plan?
I think we do need to, because we talked about how we have a minor subdivision, you have a major subdivision, and then you have major and minor other things. So yeah, I think there's probably we should get some input from the building department as to what they think, other than to just send us one waiver after the other and say, yeah, well, you should waive that, you should waive that, you should waive that.
Well, should also probably be taken in context of what building fees they collect. So, I mean, I'd like to know last year, how much did we waive and how much did we take in?
Right.
If it's a significant
Well,
percentage, then I agree with you, but if it's very de minimis, then I don't know, maybe it isn't a big deal, but I don't really know what the building department takes in.
Then the other half of it to me is if we're going to continue to waive fees, then I think we need to establish some
Policy.
criteria
Right.
as
No,
to
agreed.
what constitutes you being
A hardship.
unable to pay the fee.
Right.
At some point, I don't know how you do that. You ask for an income statement or a tax return or how you do that, but I mean, we had a person here who had an income rental property. $75 was the amount, and she couldn't
Over
apply.
3 years.
Right.
3 years.
Well, I mean, if you've got a rental property that you're deriving income from,
I'm with you.
and $75 over a 3-year period, I'm struggling with that one.
Also, is the building department sending all requests for waiving fees to us? Or are they kind of fielding them and then feeling, if they honestly, if the the director wrote this letter recommending,
I don't think he has the discretion to waive them independent of us.
No, he does
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
So
so I
he
don't think
just
he
sends
can't,
them
he
all
can't,
I think the question was whether or not he's persuading people to not come before the board.
Oh.
I think they're all coming to us.
what I'm saying, if his is he requesting that he feels it should be waived, or is it just something that came across and it's kind of a procedure for him to bring to us, request?
Well,
bring
if
to
somebody
us?
comes in and says, I had a really tough year and I can't pay this, or it'd be really hard for me to pay this, then, his solution is always going to be the same thing. You got to go talk to the town board.
Yeah.
I can't waive the fee. So,
Did you have-
I
did
think
you have
if
taxes?
if we're going to, again, figure out some criteria.
Yeah.
And say, okay, how do we decide, who can and who can't? And just come in and say, well, yeah, I had to pay for a well and what, and, my daughters game me all the time about needing money, so. But,
Did you have a motion?
I was waiting for Mike to finish.
I'm done.
You're done? Okay, in the matter of Mr. Joseph L. Francis, 14 Cornwall Court, to make a motion to postpone payment of the renewal fee until such time as construction will continue to commence. So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, next item I have, we've been looking at the first aid supplies that the town supplies in all of our locations. We asked for input from each of those locations, the highway superintendent, the court office, we have at the rec center, and at town hall. Patricia Brooks has done a little bit of investigation and found that if we change companies from Z Medical to Cintas, that alone will save the town about 35 to 40%. It's not a ton of money, but it looks like we will save, well, she's looking like the new contract would be about $1,300 annually, as opposed to, I think it was $2,200–$2,300. And the courts had said that they don't want the supplies, that they had expired. So the courts, I think we're just going to give them a regular 24-unit first aid kit. So I'll make a motion that we change vendors to Cintas First Aid and Safety at a amount not to exceed $1,300 annually, but I'm also going to, in that motion, state that we're going to exclude the courts from that part of the contract, and we'll work with maybe Paul Faber or something. We can get a small first aid kit with Band-Aids, etc., and for that, because that's what they had requested. So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so
Okay.
Cintas is it now.
Cintas. And lastly, I had requested that the Veterans Park bathroom project be put on the agenda. I was at a meeting last week of the Veterans Park Advisory Board, and this was a topic of much concern because we want to make sure we get this wrapped up before springtime. And I know that there has been a bill sent in for the work that has been done. I thought we had agreed as a town board that we were going to put a dollar amount on the work that is needed to complete the bathrooms, to be what everybody thought they would be, I guess, and fix any problems that exist, and deduct that from the bill and send off payment. That was what I thought we had decided. Now, I think what we need to do is work with our building inspector to maybe identify a local contractor or two to put a price on that work, and then also to get that work done in a timely manner. So I just wanted to bring that up for discussion.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I went first.
Okay, who wants to be second?
Did Bob go down? I thought Bob was going to go down with what was in hand, what they're supposed to do versus what they're claiming, what we see was done, and go through item by item. I thought that was the process we were going to follow.
I think, Rich, you had said that you had gone down to the bathrooms.
I accompanied Bob McCarthy,
Right.
building inspector, Rich Williams, town planner, Mike Griffin, supervisor, Paul Fava. We all went down. We all went down with the list of work that needed to be completed. There were a couple of minor issues that were deficient, but for the most part, I thought we had come to an agreement that the work had been completed. The only issue we had, we didn't go into the women's bathroom because at the time we were down there, it had been bolted shut, and none of us had the tools to open it up. It had been bolted shut
When
by
was
the
that
park
that went down, Rich?
caretaker. Oh, God, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month ago?
Yeah, it's probably about 3 weeks.
So we're of the opinion that we owe the outstanding balance.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are deficient there. There's some doorknobs that they could use some work. The ladies' room is the biggest issue because to keep the door closed, they had to bolt it shut essentially. And the knob and the locking mechanism weren't working at all. Some of them don't work as well as we'd like them to work. Some of the work wasn't, the best I've seen, but at the end of the day, my suggestion would be is probably 5% retainage would be enough to make sure they fix the knobs. I believe there was something in the contract that said if it wasn't fixed in a certain amount of time, that we had the ability to go out and get somebody else to do it. So,
Well, did we give them that opportunity to cure what we perceived as the deficiencies?
I think we've asked those guys 10 times to go back and fix a few, things. There's a ceiling that they painted that peeled, and they're saying, well, you just asked us to paint it, you didn't ask us to prep it. There's doorknobs that doors that still don't close as well as I think they should. But
So if they've refused to cure, then our option is retainage and write a check for what we think we owe.
I think a checklist of items.
well, I think we're down to the doorknob in the ladies' room, and the rest is arguable as to whether it's industry standard or not. So I mean, like I said, at this point, I think if we just took 5% and sent them the balance, and held 5%, I think we'd be fine.
Held 5%, but even that 5% has to be resolved.
Well, we need to
Well,
hire
yeah.
somebody to go in and
Well,
spend that 5%.
I think at some point we need to have one last communication with these guys to say, okay, look, if it isn't done by such and such a day, all bets are off, we're gonna get it done, we're gonna bill you.
We just have to be clear, though, that what the 5% tonnage is used to correct was stuff that we called for in the original contract and not improvements beyond that. So,
Right.
Not
okay.
something that's just arbitrary.
Well, right now, to me, there's some defective workmanship out there that would be the only issue that's really left.
And Bob would be the point person. We'll get in touch with Bob. We'll make sure we have a,
I'm not sure if
listen.
Bob's the right guy anymore now that he's not serving as a councilman, he's now as the building inspector. I'll talk to Bob tomorrow and see if he's comfortable in that role. If not, I'll speak to Paul Fava.
Okay.
And Paul and I will work it out with Richie, and we'll make sure that we're all clear as to what we think is the last
all
odds
right,
and
and
ends.
then because we
And
did
then-
receive, we
right,
received a letter
and-
from the attorney for the contractor. So I
Right.
think we should respond with
Right.
that list and.
I'll make sure you get that tomorrow.
So if we then go out, do we have to go out to bid for this?
No,
To cure this?
I
I mean, it
would-
sounds
I
like
would-
nominal.
I think the contract requires us to put in writing what we still find is
Is
deficient.
deficient. Okay.
So we can get that to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. I guess it's me. Okay. Reason we were all late getting here tonight is because we were doing interviews for professional services for town justice auditing, independent auditing, and for town independent auditing for what we do here. So we did some interviews tonight. We came down to 2 final candidates, and the board has made a decision that we are going to go with Toski and Company. They performed the audits last year. They did a very good job, as did the other individual who bid on it that we got the list down to. Toski was slightly cheaper, and we felt their credentials were a little bit stronger. So at this time, I'd like to move a resolution for professional services contract for town independent auditing services, and it be awarded to Toski and Company for a amount, I believe, of $17,600. So moved.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
And then the second, it would be for Toski to do the professional services contract for Justice Court and independent auditing services for amount, I believe, is $1,200. So moved.
The first one was
What do I say?
17.6. It's 17.3 for the first.
Okay, well,
It
then
is
we'll move the resolution and we'll correct the dollar amount, because I'm just going off of what Trish put out. Okay, so, motion been made to move the resolution for, court. There's a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Second?
All right, so we'll get you the correct dollar amounts for the resos in tonight.
Okay,
I
thank you.
thought Toski's was 76 or 73, okay, we'll work it out. They were still a little bit. Sanitation memo, scrap metal, we brought this up at the last meeting. So far, so good, the container's in place, and I guess at some point, we just need to work out the particulars on this, Counselor?
Yeah, insurance, the one that's
Okay.
the most concerned
Well,
about it,
we've been doing, well, actually, they're the same guys that are pulling, oh, actually, no, they're not. All right, so basically, have you given Frank Farrell the particulars you want?
Just
The insurance requirement and some sort of?
insurance requirement and
And
I
have
think
you
an
got an agreement?
We don't have it with him yet.
Okay.
We will get it.
Well, no, I'm just,
Yep.
okay, so you can
Now
prepare
Now
that?
that I know it's moving forward, we'll put that over.
Well, it seems to be working fine. I mean,
Great.
we
I'm sure
we
it's
call
great.
around, the price is pretty much comparable, and they're one of the only ones that are willing to give us the container and pull it for free, so.
Great,
All right, so,
get it done.
all right, very good. I have a note here. Are you looking for an executive session, Counselor?
No,
Okay.
I thought that perhaps the contractual issue with regard to Veterans Park might be appropriate, but it's already been discussed.
I think we know what we need to do for that. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I came for.
All right, I believe I'm up. First item on my agenda is County Emergency Services selection. I think as everyone is aware, the county executive did not reappoint the Commissioner Bureau of Emergency Services and has formed a committee to search for a new replacement. I have a letter that we had discussions at the last town meeting about the fact that the towns are going to be deeply affected by that selection and would like to be represented in the selection committee. And there's a letter from Deputy Supervisor Cook to Mary Ellen Odell asking that Peter D'Andriano be appointed for the representative to that committee. Since then, I've also been contacted by some citizens in town who would similarly express some concerns, and I believe there may be people in attendance who maybe want to be heard on that issue.
Okay, I have a few things on that, and then also, if I might,
Mike, can we have your name for the record, please?
Mike Ercole. I'm here tonight as Deputy Chief from Putnam Lake Fire Department, representing District 2 of the fire protection area. If I might also go a little further through that with regards to the 911 center. Is that okay? For you that don't know, pre-911, there was 3 numbers. You can call 279-3614. You can call Patterson. You would get an answer. You can call 225-4300. You'd call 279-6161. And you would get the respective company that you had called, the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, or the State Police. When 911 came in effect, you make one call, 911, hello 911, what's your emergency? They will in turn make calls to the departments closest in the area. They will tell them back who the closest call is, car. So that way, whatever your emergency was, you would be the first, whoever's closest would be the first to proceed to your area, okay? I was on the Fire Advisory Board in, 2000 to 2004 when I was Assistant and Chief of the Department. Then there was 14 fire departments, 4 ambulance corps that would meet monthly, then turned into bi-monthly, and then got disbanded, that would go to the Protective Services Committee as a whole from the county and say this is what the 14 plus 4 say that, we are advising you to do. So the TOPS building, which was built over in Carmel, was made, and the 911 center was put in there. So if there's an emergency, the EOC would be opened, okay? Then what would happen is a representative from all the utilities, the fire departments, which are the coordinators, the EMS, which is the coordinator, the school districts, they all meet in one location. So you have all the things that you might need in case of emergency right there with the 911 center. So we're not sure why Commissioner Stevens was relieved. I'm sure eventually we might find out. But now that there's a new selection, we want to make sure that it's done properly and that everybody that can have a say gets a say. So I believe there was 7 points, 7 people that were going to be on this committee. One was from the Chiefs Association, which we had selected ours. One was from the Fire Advisory Board, which is not going to be created until February 3rd when the Protective Services Committee meets. So as far as, Peter, I would think that'd be very fortunate for the town of Patterson, but to be honest, I don't think you have much of a chance just because of the way that I believe it's structured. But like I said, I think it'd be a great asset on this election. So what I'm asking now from my department is the town board to write a letter possibly to the Protective Services Committee, which the chairman is Roger Gross, to our legislator, Ginny Nassarino, and to the county executive, Odell, that the 911 center, no matter what or who becomes the new commissioner of emergency services, that it all stays in the same location because it benefits everybody on that. If it's brought to the sheriff's department, which is what the hearsay is, hopefully it's just hearsay, that it wouldn't be good because You have all the representatives in one area, and they're making phone calls to the dispatch center at the sheriff's department to say what we need and who's going. And if the sheriff's department answers the phone and they say, okay, yeah, our call volume's down this month, we're sending a deputy, not the state police, which is around the corner. We want to make sure that we're protecting our own citizens. So if you would do that, you know, like I said, the Putnam Lake Fire Department would greatly appreciate it. And, well, now there's only 13 fire departments in the county, but everyone except for one was represented at the last chiefs meeting. They are all going to their respective towns and their legislatures to ask for the same letter to be written.
Now, what was the committee that you said wasn't yet formed, that they won't be formed until February 3rd?
The Fire Advisory Board.
Is there any way to expedite that
No, because
process?
it was in a county, it was in the charter in the county up until it was disbanded, I believe, about 8 years ago. Then the legislature has to bring it back through the Protective Services Committee, which isn't going to meet until the 3rd, even though part of the selection for the questions to be asked of the new commissioner started on the 26th. So as far as the fire and EMS protection, we're already shy on picking our own commissioner.
Mike, I just, quick question, feel free not to answer it if you're uncomfortable with it, but I mean, in your opinion, is 911 working optimally right now?
I believe 911 is very efficient. They have great technology over there. They have 5 consoles set up. Everyone there is trained, as far as I understand, as good as they could be. They're all civilian, which is great because, yes, they have to answer to their boss, but other than that, they don't have to answer specifically to any other agency. Like I said, you call up, they're very highly trained. We've gone to calls where they're already telling people what to do when you're delivering a baby, what to do when you're having CPR. If someone's having a stroke, what to do to them until an ambulance of some sort can get there and start patient care.
Okay, so I mean, we've already got all the equipment, we've already got trained personnel in place. I'm struggling to see the logic of spending the money and the expense of moving it, because all the phone lines are there, all the switching is set up, all the computer
and there's a room this
dispatching
size
is set up. I
Right.
mean, and they've got the war room over there for emergency management for storms, disasters of any sort.
Right, and also,
I just don't see the logic here.
right, as far as the committee or Chiefs Association, when we started before 911 and before the Tops building, we had a raised ranch next to the Veterans Park over in Carmel, and the bottom floor had smelly water and no heat, and that was our training. And upstairs was a couple little rooms the smaller than your kid's bedroom to run emergency services, the fire police, the hazmat team. So now it's all in one building. We don't want to take any chances on saying, well, if we save $100,000 here and we save $50,000 there, that let's just start working backwards. We finally got to where Putnam County is pretty high in standards as far as 911 dispatch, that we don't want to go back as far as EMS or fire.
I can't imagine the cost of moving all that equipment and everything else.
That's what I understand. And then also, they are the backup in case something were to happen to the Tops building at the Sheriff's Department, but they don't have the proper manning or the proper training as far as getting everybody on board.
So is the issue, though, from your perspective, autonomy? In other words, it should not be autonomous of any individual, the sheriff's department, state police.
Correct.
So you think it becomes a political football if you appoint,
it possibly
like if you
could,
appoint
yes.
someone from one of those agencies to run it, whether you move it physically to another location, it becomes problematic because
Right.
it
And
could-
also, I mean, Peter can attest to, you were a cop in Greenberg, I believe?
Yes.
You do something wrong, you're probably stuck down at the either dispatch or taking phone calls or something, and you're probably not in the best mood to be there. But if you're a trained civilian 911 dispatcher, that's your job. Let the cops be on the street being cops, and let the dispatchers that are trained for it do the dispatching and sending the proper person to the location of your call.
Okay.
I have a couple comments if I could. First of all, I do remember I was a volunteer fireman back in the 80s and 90s. I remember that little smelly building taking all my firefighter courses down there. And the new Tops building is it's so much better. But also, our legislator, Jenny Nasarino, also contacted me. She met with the Patterson chiefs, and they feel the same way. They want to keep the 911 dispatch at the Tops building and separate from the sheriff's office. And on a personal note, I don't know how far this goes, but I think we should make a public note of it. But I remember back when the sheriff's office ran the 911, or ran on the emergency dispatch, and like the deputy chief said, you know, I know how it is in my police department. You put the junior guy in communications, you know, the guy who gets jammed up, it's kind of a punishment you put in there. And cops are great cops, and we have great deputies. I think we have a really good sheriff's office, but dispatchers are trained as dispatchers. They're professional. We have excellent dispatchers over there that do a great job. So I don't understand. Another problem too is if the sheriff's office took it over, and this is what happened back years ago. There was a battle between agencies. You know, a battle between police agencies and fire, police, EMS. Right now, it's pretty much independent, and there really is no political battles going on. I think it runs great. I don't understand why they would want to.
So you want it to be
Go backwards.
an autonomous and apolitical appointment?
Right.
Okay.
Well,
Who can write that letter?
I guess I will. Yeah, it's not broke. I'm not sure why why would we want to fix it? I don't understand. If something's working well, functioning well, all the emergency services are well established and well run out of this one spot, why change it? But I'll do a little homework on this and reach out to the third floor of the county building and see what I can find out, and we'll go from there. We'll bring it back up in the next meeting.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
All right, next item on my agenda is drainage easement on Fremont Road. Fremont Road is owned by the town, and we have an obligation to maintain it. In order to perform some drainage remediation plan at that location, we have to enter into a drainage easement agreement. So I have a resolution, which I'm just going to move as read, seeking to have a agreement for a drainage easement for Fremont Road for the purposes of performing maintenance at that location and, well, long-term maintenance, drainage remediation. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, last on my agenda is budget transfers. Budget transfer request 70 is for highway machinery to refund of prior year's expenses for $6,000. Budget transfer 71 is for $189 between receiver of taxes training and to receiver of taxes contractual. Budget transfer 72 is just year-end balance adjustments with regards to assessments payable to Putnam County for $294 and change. Budget transfer 73 is minor transfers between Special Counsel, Clover Lake Tax Cert, and Laws Construction, and it's $669 and $14. So I'll make a motion to approve budget transfers 70, 71, 72, and 73. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That is all. Thank you.
Okay. Go right ahead.
We received a memo from the town clerk, our esteemed town clerk, that she would like to hire Joy D'Andriano. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Sounds right.
As a part-time clerk starting February 3rd, 2015, at the hourly rate of $11. So, do we approve that, or motion-wise?
Yeah, because if they're going to be the deputy town clerk, then that's Antoinette's appointment, and then there's no discussion about that.
Okay.
Being that this is a request for a new employee, then yes, we do hire.
So then I will make the motion that the town board approve the town clerk's recommendation to hire Joy D'Andriano, part-time clerk in her office at an hourly rate of $11. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll recuse myself.
Okay.
My sister.
All right. Is there any other business? John? No. Sean? Pete?
I have one thing I forgot to mention when we were on the rec center. I think it was last meeting we talked about replacing the office door with a Dutch-style door to increase the security. They felt, we all feel that another option we came up with, and I guess looking further, they felt that the second option was better and more cost effective, was instead of replacing that door, just replacing the desk in the office area, putting a counter up by the window, and putting a spring-loaded door to keep the door closed. So I don't think we have a cost on that as of yet. So just wanted
Well,
to
it'd certainly be a lot cheaper than ripping the door
Yeah.
out and replacing it, that's for sure.
and if that works for them, I think it's a better option.
No, I think it's great, and I, thank you and Sue and everybody that went down there and did the security audit, and, well done. I mean, it's a very busy place, a lot of people going in and out. We did have a minor incident with an individual, so security is extremely important down there, so. Okay, well then I guess we're at our favorite part of the meeting, and then we'll open it up to public recognition. Does any member of the public wish to be recognized at this time? Please come up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and then whatever it is you'd like to talk about.
Hi, sorry, Mr. Burns, I have a question. You had a memo for a drainage easement?
Yes.
You said in Fremont. I just wanted to double check on that because we sent in a memo for a drainage easement, but it was not for Fremont. So I don't know.
What's the location of the easement?
It's Tammany Hall. The address is actually 16 Tommy Thurber Lane, but I think the drainage easement is Tammany Hall. And I had faxed it in to Michael Griffin.
Didn't we do that last? I thought we did a Tammany Hall drainage easement previously, didn't we?
So there is a drainage, so the issue,
I'm going by
I think we
memory.
better ask the town planner what.
What we did?
All right, and could we have your name one more time for the record?
Jennifer Sotar.
Okay, you got that, Internet? You need the spelling of the last name?
I'll get it from the email.
Okay.
So, Rich Williams, town planner. The issue is this: way back in the late '90s, early 2000s, we were entering the era of the MS4, where we had to take a harder look at drainage, but we really didn't know how this was going to evolve on the planning board level. So a lot of times with the smaller subdivisions, we were creating drainage improvements, but we weren't assigning responsibility for future maintenance to anybody. And this is one of those cases. The Rosewood subdivision is an 8-lot subdivision on the corner of Tammany Hall Road and Tommy Thurber Lane. And right at that intersection, everything drains down into what is a little pocket wetland area. It's almost a vernal pool. And at the headwaters to that, the way the subdivision was designed is all the water was pitched back away from the frontage of the lots to a common swale that meanders down through the woods and discharges into this stormwater pond with a forebay. There are structures involved with it. There's a little dam involved with it. But in doing that, the planning board didn't know what to do as far as the future maintenance, so they did what we all do best. We did nothing. And so we have these drainage improvements out there, and in particular, they all come down onto this one lot, and there is no entity either in the subdivision approval or on the subdivision plat or in the stormwater pollution prevention plan that's been assigned the responsibility to do the future maintenance on these stormwater practices. And this is not an isolated case. We have these all throughout the town where we have...
In my backyard.
And Kevin's back. Kevin, and I got to talk to you about...
Maybe I can recuse myself from this one.
Yeah, what maintenance you're going to be doing out there this year. But anyway...
Just do your job.
Yeah, so
Get out and
we have,
clean
I believe, a young couple that is interested in buying the lot, but they don't want to buy the lot because they don't want to be responsible for some very expensive maintenance that they may be required to do in the future.
Is it on your lot then? So okay. How did we did it before it was?
At some point, we are going to have to sit down. I have a list of all these stormwater ponds and swales and catch basins that are on private property that require maintenance and nobody is doing it.
Okay.
And work out how that's going to happen.
What's your time frame in terms? Are you looking to buy a property, or you've bought it and when?
Oh, yes, we're in the process of purchasing it. Our attorneys and the seller's attorney.
Okay.
Who is also on the planning committee, which is kind of funny. They said that.
Would you mind coming back to the microphone,
Yes.
Jennifer? I see our videographer in the back is straining to hear what you're saying, so.
Sorry.
I talk quiet. Yes, so we made an offer, it was accepted, and we started on the contracts, and both our attorney and the seller's attorney both were very concerned about the liability issue.
Okay.
And they don't want to move forward, so we're kind of at a standstill.
What's your time frame in terms of when you're trying to close? Like 30,
Yeah.
30 days?
We
Do you
were
have a rate
supposed
that's
to
expiring?
sign contracts over a week ago.
Okay.
And then closing 2 months from then, but we haven't signed anything yet at this point. So.
Alrighty.
Well, I will come back to sit down with Richie and Don, we'll come back
What's
with
the
a
best way to-
recommendation.
Sitting down with you, sitting down with the planning board, sitting down
Well,
with...
I'm gonna need some time with Richie because, apologize, I was on vacation last week and I had about 460 something emails when I got back, so I haven't gotten to every last one of them yet, but I'm working on them. I'll sit down with Richie and Don and we'll see what the whole thing looks like. Is there any possible application for EOH on this? Or phosphorus credit or anything else?
The issue is the stormwater improvements are there.
Yeah.
The question is, who is going to be responsible for future maintenance?
No, I got all that, but I'm just wondering if there's any credit to be had, and then if there's any possible assignment either to the town or the EOH.
No.
No.
Well, I'm sure they would be happy to give it to the town, if that's what you're suggesting.
I understand that, and it's probably something we need to look at to see what's going to be involved in the maintenance issue of it, but since it was never originally included in the phosphorus reduction program, just a thought.
Yeah, well, no, because it predates that initial inception date that we had for taking credit. Otherwise, I would have already taken credit for it.
Well, take new credit and tell them we're going to go clean it out, fix it up, and make it up just like new. All right, we'll talk about it.
Talk about it.
Thanks.
Can we do something on that quickly?
Is it a town road?
What?
Is it a town road?
I don't, there's two levels of problem here, and we'll, yeah, well, go ahead, Dee Dee.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Dee Dee Lifgren. I posed a couple questions during the December meeting. I was wondering if you considered them and if I should ask them again.
As far as definitions of restaurants, because that was what the memo tonight was about.
Yes, well, that's specifically to the changes in the zoning
Right.
code. And in particular, I was asking also, along with the suggestions I had for that, I was asking in particular about our case and how, actually 3 questions. If the zoning is changed, how it would reflect something that was inappropriately approved. So there was that. Also, I asked if we could ever get this reverted back to the zoning the way it should be. So if this business were to leave, could it ever be reverted back? And then my 3rd question was if we could assess the business as it is now, because there seems to be some question of whether it is actually a restaurant or a caterer, and the impacts that are implied from that answer. So I was wondering if you considered those questions.
Well, I think we talked about I think first of all, with regards to grandfathering, I don't think it would be in other words, if we go to change the code tomorrow, they're grandfathered in. So there's no change that we can affect today with regards to the code that's going to change the application of the code to the situation you're facing, because it's
No, I
predates
understand that.
change.
I guess my question is not particularly for that, but if the code now states that it is any changes are based on the existing conditions, and the existing conditions are something that wasn't approved, how does that affect us? You know, am I being clear?
I understand what you're saying. In other words, we approved a restaurant to be built, and if that restaurant changes its use to something different, and one of the triggers we talked about was significant changes in hours of operation, changes in the type of business.
Right. Well,
That would, just
okay,
let me finish.
again,
That would
I'm
be
not being
one
clear.
of the triggers that we're trying to work into the code that would allow a review. So I think once we codify those changes, it won't go back and change what's happened in the past, but it will allow for future changes. So even though this facility is here, the one we're talking about, this barbecue facility, if they say, you know what, we now want to be a 24-hour barbecue house. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but let's just say that. Well, then that's something that should trigger a
Right.
review. And
Okay.
we can say yes or no to that based on impacts.
Okay, I understand that, but I guess I'm also asking, since the restaurants are restricted in that zone, and the zoning now goes ahead with existing conditions, the fact that they shouldn't be there, is the zone for us reading now that they will be there, or will it revert back to the fact that they're not supposed to be there? Am
I understand what you're asking.
Yeah.
In other words, if our code changes make this just for sake of argument, a pre-existing non-conforming issue, is that vacated upon change of ownership or the business closing for a year? If the property's vacated for a year, does that then revert to
Or the fact that
the prior or the approved zoning?
Or the fact that, maybe I'm not being clear, that restaurants are restricted from this zone, but this one got in. So now if the code changes and accepts it as existing, will it be existing, or will it revert back to no restaurant? I guess, I don't know where the code leaves us.
There would have to be a change of use, right? So is it the restaurant, if the restaurant ceases to exist and another restaurant doesn't replace it?
If I understand the question, at one point, the zoning didn't permit restaurants to be there.
Right.
But the town approved the restaurant to be there.
Right.
Well, it didn't prove it.
It
didn't do
did.
anything.
It did. In 1989, the town approved a restaurant for being there, even though it was in the RPL 5 zoning district. That's what you're talking about,
Yes.
right? The difficulty we have now is when we redid the zoning, everybody that was redoing the zoning looked at it and said, geez, it's a restaurant. So they extended the GB zoning district, which permits restaurants, to include that parcel. So right now, it's a permitted use.
So my question,
So
how does it,
even if it wasn't legal back prior to we did the zoning in 2005, it is now legal.
Right, so it would have to cease to if it ceased to exist as a restaurant. So it turns into a gift shop for a year, and then someone comes back and says, I want to turn it back into a restaurant.
It's still, right
it's
now,
still-
it's
it's
still
still permitted
permitted in
use.
the GB zoning district.
Okay,
so
so that's your answer.
Since the zone never got changed for the approval to be given, I guess I'm asking how this affects us.
I
Well-
don't think what Rich just said, though, is that the zoning got changed on that parcel. So your question was, if the restaurant goes away and it sits, can somebody else come in and do another restaurant? The answer, it sounds like, is yes, but the code will now allow different triggers based on impacts and those things that we're considering within the new code. So
Okay, so even though that zone says that restaurants are restricted,
well, that's not what Rich just said.
It's permitted.
I think
That
the
they're
confusion
permitted.
is somehow Dee Dee wants to say the restaurant shouldn't have ever been there in the first place.
well, the zoning code says that no. So,
In 1989.
as I understand it, the zoning restrictions for that cone weren't applied correctly, and it was approved even though it shouldn't have been.
That is correct.
So by that mistake, I guess I'm asking, does it automatically get grandfathered in as a mistake, or can it revert back to the way it's supposed to be?
Well, I think it would be within our power to change the zoning in that area back to what it was and zone it out, but then you now have if you do that, you now have a non-conforming use that you can't get rid of until the restaurant ceases to exist.
Well, I'm not talking about what's in there now, because.
But I'm saying the only way to accomplish what you're suggesting should be accomplished, in other words, it goes back to the way it was before, no restaurants, is the town changes the zoning on the restaurant and says, wait, no restaurants at this location. Parcel's now going to be, whatever, I forget the zoning code. But obviously, you know, they have a restaurant there, they're entitled to operate. So until it ceases to operate, nothing changes.
Well,
Do I have it
that's my
right?
question, after, if it should cease, I'm not,
Right, should it cease to exist and zoning was changed for that parcel before it ceases to exist, then the next person can't then open up a restaurant. That's
Okay.
the short answer. So you,
okay. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if I was, and then the other question is, will there be an assessment of what's going on there now?
well, I think Bob's committed to going out there, but I mean, now is not the time,
Yeah.
as I understand it, to
Right.
assess it because
At
his
peak, right.
peak times are the summer. So he's committed, I think, when he's talked to us before about it, to go out. He's been out there at night. He's been outdoor during the day. I mean, he seems like he's been out there quite a bit, and I think he's committed to doing it again. But I think they have
Okay,
to
because the
ramp up
restaurant-
operations again.
The restaurant is closed. They're just doing catering there. So I guess our question is, that's the situation, is,
So it's operating, but it's not
it's
accepting
operating as a
customers.
caterer.
Yeah, there's a sign on the door that says closed for the season. If we're still doing catering and a couple of things, call us at this number and you can still, so, yeah, I think there is something for Bob to take a look at relative to restaurant versus catering, because pretty clear now that that's all they're doing out of the facility, so.
What is the impact for catering on you now, as it
Well,
is
the
now?
issue is that the
mean-
catering, even the business has slowed down, and.
But I'm saying the impact, like you
Well,
talked
they
in
don't
prior.
have to fire during the night anymore.
Right, you've talked in prior meetings about the impact it's had on your residents. So what's the impact presently in terms of just the catering operation?
Well, they're doing very little of that right
Okay.
now.
So,
It's not like it was before. I mean, when they're geared up
So
full-time, it's 24 hours a day, all during the night,
so it still may not be the optimal time to assess it. To
No,
assess
I
the
think at peak,
impact.
it would have to
Okay.
be at peak time. And so, would an assessment be done on the building? On the business, I guess I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Bob's committed to doing it, but I mean, we have to know that it's open again and
Okay.
ramping up. It's it's catering for Memorial Day and it's open for business, and now it's operating 10 to 10. Then now's the time to go back out and assess the impact.
Okay, so.
But that's probably not for several months.
Again, not to belabor this point, but I guess I'm seeing it as the difference between whether it is operating as a restaurant versus essentially a caterer. And that's the position that we're coming to you. The impacts that we're finding is that the excessive catering amounts that are going in.
Well, I think that we addressed this a couple of meetings ago where we looked at the definition that we had in the code for restaurants and catering, and it was somewhat blurred, so that that was one of the issues I think we talked about revising, we don't, the problem is, right now, as the code is we can't make that.
Well, I
And
guess that's
Sean
why I'm
probably can talk it
asking-
better than I, but
The real question is the principal use of the building now a restaurant or a catering facility? That's what Dee Dee's trying to ask you to have Bob go out and evaluate, if I understand you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's what Dee Dee's trying to ask the board, is to direct Bob to go out and evaluate whether it is now acting more as a catering facility than a restaurant because it's closed down.
But does that get us anywhere under the code?
Well, if the principal use is catering, then that is not a use that's listed as a permitted principal use under our code.
All right,
That's the difficulty.
so you want it,
Well,
so we can ask
it's not
Bob?
real difficult right now because this restaurant's closed for the season.
All right.
And if you want something catered, call us at this number. So I think it's pretty obvious by their own signage.
So why don't we have-
that it's now exclusively a catering business.
So why don't we have Bob go out and just document that?
That's fine.
Dee Dee, do you see workers there preparing food and running the smoker to support the catering operation currently in the last 2 weeks?
Well, yeah, but the amount is not, I guess the.
It's not
volume
causing
is
a
not-
negative,
yeah,
but
it's
you
not-
do,
it's
no,
not
but
in relation.
my point is that if they were supporting a catering business from some other location or from a vending vehicle, which they have a permit for, that would, just because they're closed and it says call this number if you want catering, doesn't in and of itself prove that they're doing something wrong.
Well, if,
Follow me? In other words-
if catering is not a permitted use,
No,
and the
that's
sign
not the
clearly says we're closed as a restaurant, we're just doing catering.
No, but the reason I asked you, was because there's a clear distinction between supporting their catering operation from that facility or supporting it from another facility. In other words, I was asking, are the workers there working? You know, because just putting a note on the door that says we're closed and call us if you'd like some catering, they can go to someone's facility and cater. There's many things that people can cater. It doesn't have to be out of that facility. So since you took the time to provide the explanation, I wanted to make sure you were being clear because you seem...
They are working there, but again, it's not at the extent of as they are in the summer. And also, they are still advertising as a caterer from there, and they're using that as a base, and people are calling there for that purpose. So they're still using the facility as that. Again, this is based on the amount of impact that comes from the hundreds of meals that they are making from the catering, and that's the issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Robert Odell, Lakeshore Drive, Patterson. Mr. Griffin, the scrap metal in the dumpster, is that separated before it goes? Between brass, copper, aluminum, or is it just bulk?
Just bulk.
So if you have 100 pounds of brass in there, you're losing.
Or copper, yeah, you're right, absolutely. But, you know, at this point, to try and separate it out would be a, you know, pretty substantial task. So,
You're getting paid for heavy copper, I mean heavy steel or light steel? In other words, you know, there's going to be brass and
it's
copper
going to
in
be
there.
the lowest amount for mixed metals, you know, I mean, it's probably light steel. Because, yes, you're absolutely right. If we sorted it out as to heavy, to copper, to brass, the prices differ for every single thing. But where it's all just getting lumped together and being thrown in there. If you come in there with aluminum windows or your old swimming pool, it's going in there. If you come in there with, if you're crazy enough to come in there with a couple 100 pounds of copper that you ripped out of your house and throw it in there, then you're going to get the lower price.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Bruce Major, 166 Somerset. Kevin.
Yes.
Several months ago, you indicated that there was going to be a joint meeting of the town board, planning and zoning. It was going to be last year, and then someone said, well, we'll do it after the first of the year.
Right.
Have you set a date?
I don't think we have. I was actually looking at my calendar, and I don't think we actually did pick a date, did we? No. We talked about it.
Well, could we maybe pick a date tonight rather than waiting another 2 weeks?
days from today.
How many days?
338.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's do it.
We'll do March, April. What's pick a date?
We'll ask Rich to coordinate it with zoning and planning, and
When do you think is it? What's their caseload right now as far as planning and zoning?
They're both running light at this point.
All right.
They've got a couple of touchy cases, but for the most part, they're running light.
Do you want to run a March date by them?
Sure, if you have one. Or if you want to pick two or three.
we should pick one of their meeting
Yeah, I was going to say,
days.
why don't we go? Were we going to attend their meeting? Are they gonna-
Zoning meets on one of the Wednesdays that we don't meet,
Zoning,
correct?
zoning meets the third Wednesday, planning board meets the fourth and first Thursday.
How about? It's funny, everybody's on their phones and I got paper. It's funny to see this going on.
Well, you're the new Ed O'Connor.
I
Catch
know.
up here.
Your
There are-
Blackberry's
I'm
exceptional.
honored to be compared to Mr. O'Connor.
You should be.
I am.
All right.
March
So,
eight- March
are we
eight-
looking for
March
a
eight.
Wednesday, or are we
How
looking
about,
for?
how about Thursday the 19th? Thursday the 19th.
Okay,
no
well-
planning board. March 19th, Thursday. That's one date. Tuesday's no good. It's St. Patty's Day.
What about March 18th, a Wednesday, if that would be
Yeah,
their
18th or
regular,
the 19th,
I was gonna say probably any day that week. I mean,
except St. Patty's Day.
except St. Patrick's Day.
Or we could do it and then go out afterwards, I suppose. But
I don't know,
No,
say
no
we
good-
could
no good comes
serve
of that.
green pizza or something. at
let's
the
shoot
meeting.
for the
Come on.
18th or the 19th.
Have it at Walsh's.
All right?
Yeah.
All right.
Have it at Walsh's.
What's the date?
There you go.
There you go.
Green pizza.
So
What's
is
your
that
name,
him?
sir?
Am I next?
Yes, sir.
Rich Williams, town planner. Our residents over at Meadowbrook Farms, the homeowners association, has been enjoined in some litigation with the developer out there for some time now. The developer's attorney recently filed an affidavit which calls into question some of the issues within the planning board record, and as a result, The HOA attorney has asked me to file an affidavit. We want to make sure everybody is okay with that, and I'm not filing an affidavit that hasn't been reviewed and approved by the town attorney. That's first and foremost.
What's the purpose of the affidavit? Is it just clarification of the record?
Correct.
I mean, if it's objectively and not taking an opinion on the litigation, but just clarifying facts.
Correct.
If it's an objective affidavit, then I don't think we can go too far astray, can we?
The initial draft of the affidavit was prepared by the plaintiff's attorney.
So took a position?
We've had to make it a bit more objective.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, if it's clear.
Kind of that.
Does anyone else see an issue with just purely clarifying the record? If it's objective and not taking a position one way or another with the litigation.
It's just one other document.
As long as we're not giving them, taking a position, and everything that we're giving them is foilable anyway, so.
Right.
That's what I was trying to get through, but
Yeah.
fine.
Great.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Then when you have to go testify, we don't want to hear about it.
They can subpoena me anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they will.
I'm sure they will. They'll get around to it eventually.
Part of the strategy is trying to reduce that possibility.
Right.
Okay, is there any other member of the public that'd like to be recognized at this time?
Yeah,
You already had your turn.
Mike Ercole, I'm Advisory Board, Putnam Lake Park District.
You got to put your other hat on. Do you have advice?
Yeah, I might have missed a note or something, and we don't have our meeting until next week. But I believe in the beginning of January, there's going to be divers going down and check the sluice gate at the dam. Was there any word, or did they go? Or
Never showed up.
anything happen?
It didn't happen.
Thank you.
Now there's too much ice on the lake.
Just ask.
No, what happened, what ultimately happened is we were trying to schedule the divers not to go down and inspect, but to go down and block the outlet. They're going to put a bulkhead right on, bolted in. The weather turned on us, and they are more than anxious to come down here and still do the work, but I've put them on hold because we're not plowing the dam. And I'm concerned about trying to do this in the cold, though they're more than happy to go in the water. They would prefer to have ice on the lake, but I'm not that inclined to do it, so I've put it off till the spring. In the spring, we're going to do that. We're going to finish up sealing up the outlet, and then the last week of March, the new sluice gate is scheduled to arrive. And in the next few weeks, I'm going to be putting the bid together for that so that we can put that work out to bid and get that sluice gate cleaned up. And at the same time, we're going to try to do some other work out there, new cover, look at the sidewalls to the spillway, some of the other work that needs to be done out there.
Motion adjourned.
Just make sure everybody that wanted to speak has had an opportunity to do so. Okay.
Motion adjourned.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for coming. Good night, Eileen. Anthony?